Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again. And I'm not even mad at this stage. I'm actually more numb, quite frankly. Maybe I should have not eschewed the warning signs that were around and prevalent already last year. Maybe I shouldn't have been so optimistic about the preseason and been a bit more skeptical. Either way, we all know what's going to happen next. It's not a matter of if anymore. It is a matter of when. It's not even the performances that concern me so much. It's something much, much bigger than that. And it is clear that Aston Villa is now headed towards a very dark place. So I'm going to try to numb my pain with a Bowmore 15. This is a fine, fine bottle, which you can get, by the way, at the Whiskey Exchange. You can get anything there, even discontinued and rare bottles. Anything I've ever poured on this show, you can get at the Whiskey Exchange, which I'm an affiliate member of. So if you go to the description and you click on that link, go browse around. Bottles shipped right to your door unless you live in Canada, and you'll be supporting yours truly and producer Rob. So we have to do it now. We have to review and recap Aston Villa 0 and West Ham United 1. Here's the gift that best describes how I felt after Sunday, and frankly, since this season kicked off, it is misery. We are straight on Route D39 to Misery Town, and I really, really hope there's a turnoff before we get there. Here I am in this absolutely cracking strip, one of my favorites of all time, which I've been hunting down for ages. Thanks to Justin Hawthorne of the Up the Villa podcast, just a couple of YouTube doors down, for helping to procure this beauty. And I'm thinking this may be my favorite era of all time in supporting the club. Yeah, okay, the early 80s was pretty great. But think about it. We had a Villa man as manager, a Villa boy as a captain, Luke, the local company, which made beautiful merch for Aston Villa, 10-game winning streaks, promotion. I mean, that seems like a lifetime ago. Now we're talking about crest redesign, commercial and stadium development, and most laughably of all, Europe. Because, I mean, there's ambition, and then there's the cold, stark reality. And what is clear now, over the last 13 months, we have had a catastrophic failure in the strategy and the construct of the football department of this club. And that's the most important thing. That's what matters. It doesn't matter if you have all these fancy new things all around you while in the championship. Now, I apologize for going back in time, but this is really important for context. Last year during the off-season, Aston Villa basically leaked to everybody that they were going to pursue James Ward-Prowse of Southampton and Emile Smith-Rowe of Arsenal. Now, whether those are players that Grealish himself identified as two that he would love to play with, I don't know. Were they trying to show intent to Jack Grealish that they were serious about building a squad around him? I don't know. But whether it was because of the subsequent stink bids, which obviously were not accepted and frankly seemed a bit on the embarrassing side, or it was because they finally came to the conclusion that Jack Grealish was leaving no matter what they did, those pursuits fizzled out. When Grealish left, we were told afterwards there were two clear plans, one with him staying and one if he left. I don't believe that anymore, quite frankly, because we recruited Emi Buendia at the very start of the window in June. Wasn't he supposed to be the one supplying Jack Grealish, or was he the one replacing him? I thought Leon Bailey was recruited to be the guy who benefited the most from all the attention that Grealish got on the left-hand side so he can be wide open on the right, and Danny Ings, for me, just felt like a panic buy to soften the bad news of Grealish's departure. And then when the departure finally happened, we were told that Bailey, Buendia, and Ings were Jack Grealish replacements. Well, if that's the case, then they would have known already in June that he was leaving. And what we know now, of course, is that Grealish was irreplaceable, and we still have not really recovered from that. So this was the first really big blow for the new owner's era. And unlike Wes Eden's Milwaukee Bucks star Giannis, Villa was not able to convince their biggest star and their most important asset and the face of the club, quite frankly, to stick around. And I don't think they've come to terms with that since. You need to play European football to attract big stars. And to play European football, you need to sign big stars. So far, Aston Villa has merely dipped their toes into transfer business, while all around them, the clubs they're competing with have made huge bids in the 40 to 50 million pound range to bring in the kind of quality that can elevate the squad as a whole. Our record signing is Emi Buendia, and he doesn't even start games. And then we have the fantasy football approach to player recruitment led by Johan Lange and his staff of sports nerds with their stats and data analysis. Big move for Lange to come from FC Copenhagen to the Premier League, considering that Copenhagen was basically qualifying for Europe by default year upon year. But the concept was simple. Go and scour the world of players with good numbers, buy them at around 2.5 million, develop them, and then move them on for 20 million. It's a wonderful idea. However, it was Lange and Lange alone who recruited Morgan Sanson for 14 million pounds, a deal, everybody said. Meanwhile, two managers, separate managers, both froze this player out, who was, yes, injury prone, and now they can't even recover that money because apparently he has no resale value, much like many of the other players that Villa have been forced to send out on loan rather than sell outright, which makes it kind of difficult too to bring new players in. So in other words, the players brought in weren't appreciating in value, they were depreciating in value. That's a problem. Then came the big decision, the decision to bin Dean Smith, and naively thinking that somebody new could come in and fix what was a fundamentally broken and poorly constructed squad that was way too reliant previously on one key player. And let's make no bones about it. The squad has a major role to play in what's going on right now. There are players on this squad right now who probably shouldn't be starting, but seem to week in and week out. Maybe it would have been smarter to bring somebody in that had a similar style to Dean Smith. At least there would have been some continuity. But what is that style? Does anybody know? Do you know? The owners sure as hell don't know. Christian Purslow absolutely does not know. And so he turned that decision over to a name with 3 years experience in the Scottish Premier League. He was going to decide what the team would look like. And this was, let's be honest, a branding decision as much as a footballing decision. It was a vanity hire. And when you make decisions footballing-wise on image rather than substance, you're asking for trouble. So essentially, Villa went from the prototypical father figure type manager who built this family-style culture around the club and a 4-3-3 system to virtually the complete opposite individual, a young guy 5-6 years removed from his playing career, demanding, wanting higher standards, kicking players up the backside, maybe a little bit ego-oriented. And he wasn't even the tactical brains behind what was happening at Rangers. That was Michael Beale. Imagine the horror and shock to Christian Purslow when Emi Martinez disclosed for all to hear that it was Michael Beale who did virtually all of the talking in the tactical and technical preparations each and every week. So did the Villa players suit this two narrow tens type system that Steven Gerrard wanted to bring with him? No, not at all. We did not have a team that was set up that way. And this is what happens when you turn the entire technical philosophy over to a new guy. Now, if we had a proper head of football philosophy at this club, it would all be cohesive and buttoned up. This is how we're going to play. These are the type of players we want to fill those roles, and these are the coaches who are able to work in those parameters. But that's not what we've done. We've chopped, we've changed, we've turned those decisions over to the next guy in the door, and my fear is we're going to do that again. Here's an idea. Rather than scouring the entire planet for players based on statistical analysis or good data behind them, what if you looked at clubs that played in the same style or systems as you do and recruit from those clubs? Because if you bring a player in from those clubs, they'll already be familiar with the system before they walk through your doors. That makes logical sense. But not at brand Aston Villa. No, at brand Aston Villa, we need a name at the helm. We need a new crest, a new stand, more commercial opportunities. They've got this the wrong way around. Their priorities are mixed up, and I'm 100% convinced that the reason for that is they have the wrong person at the helm making the big football strategic decisions. So here we are. Potentially one win out of the first 6. I'm not being optimistic about the week ahead. That's 3 of a possible first 18 points, and a transfer window that is closing on Thursday. Now, let me ask you, who in their right mind of any substantive quality would want to come here and take this on right now as a player? And agents and players aren't dumb. They see what's going on here. Why on earth would they want to come here knowing that the manager could be gone in a couple of weeks, which leaves us with unproven or desperate players or players with baggage, quite frankly, in which case it may be better to do absolutely nothing at all, even though this squad has been so badly constructed. It's like Frankenstein's monster. And the new person as a manager who potentially comes into the door, are they going to keep this weird 2-10s narrow system with the fullbacks bombing forward and the 8s spreading out? No, of course they're not going to. No chance. So that person is going to change the style once again, probably ask for new players, and continue to try to bang round pegs into square holes. And all those players that were recruited based on this promise of playing for a former iconic player in Steven Gerrard and being part of this project, what are they going to do now? Coutinho, Boubacar Kamara, Diego Carlos, maybe others. I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to call their agents and say, get me out of here. This isn't what I signed up for. I came here because of this project. And then as far as the established players are concerned, who spent the last 8 months trying to prove to a very demanding individual that they were up to the standards that he was setting higher than before, well, now they're going to have to prove themselves all over again with a new manager. And some of them are going to say to their agents, get me out of here. No matter whether it's a caretaker interim manager or they go after another name that's longer term, we are in for more flux, more turnover, and more upheaval. It is a bloody mess. I suppose Mauricio Pochettino is currently available, and he'd probably look at this opportunity as being an intriguing challenge. He certainly has Premier League experience with Saints and Spurs. And, he's right in the middle of that father figure managerial type with the brash and feisty ex-pro, but with a much, much more comprehensive football managerial resume behind him. The thing for me is that feels just like another quick fix, band-aid, temporary solution to a much, much bigger problem. And again, you're asking somebody from the outside to come in and change everything based on their philosophy. We as a club need to drive the philosophy. And that's why in a perfect world, even in season, and I know that's the scary part, we're in a season, the worst thing that can happen to this club is relegation. And to fire everybody is going to be really expensive. But if you want to do it right, you have to rebuild it. We need to hire a head of football that replaces Purslow and Lange. And that person is responsible for determining what the playing style should be for this club that will ignite the fan base and will get people excited about Aston Villa again. Then you got to stick with that. And you got to recruit based on that. Your coaches, your players, your academy staff, and your recruitment department. Everything needs to be coherent and buttoned up. Because if we make one temporary change, it's going to lead to another temporary change, and we're going to continue to be in this cycle of flux if we don't start all over with a clean slate. Of course, everybody in Aston Villa land is clamoring for Graham Potter to leave Brighton and take this project on, and being a former Villa fan himself and also thinking about the logical next career step, this would be an appropriate move for him. And if I were him, I'd also be wondering, My current club is selling an awful lot of players without replacing them, and despite that, he has them in a very good spot to start the season because he is a highly regarded coach. But I know CEO Paul Barber of the Seagulls, he is going to fleece Aston Villa for every penny he can in compensation, and then he'll go and hire Mauricio Pochettino because of his past connections with Poch at Spurs. Either way, no matter how you look at it, this is a mistake that is going to cost Villa's owners tens of millions of dollars, and for that fact alone, Christian Purslow simply cannot be allowed to carry on as the CEO. You know, it's such a beautiful ground, and it's such a glorious historical club. But we are in a dark, dark place right now, my friend, and it's really tough to do this. But we soldier on with the Holy Trinity show, the 3 key issues or moments that defined Aston Villa 0 and West Ham United 1, starting with the key statistics. And I feel like I'm just going through the motions here because Villa did have the statistical edge on so many fronts, but that doesn't matter because the big one that matters did not go their way. I looked at tackles won here too because the midfield battle was going to be a big one, and for the most part, Villa held their own. In fact, effort was not an issue in this game. Look, no big chances created by either team, and Villa had more tackles won. Again, not down to effort. It was about chance creation and taking those chances. You know, I agreed initially with the whole approach to the match: control the ball, deny West Ham the ball. We could talk about moments all you like. There weren't many. In the end, we probably showed too much respect to a West Ham side that was coming in rather beleaguered based on their league form. And then we were just hoping for Phil Coutinho to make that little pass or have that little moment that unlocked West Ham and forced them to come chase a game. And we did have one set piece that led to a goal that was ruled out. I felt it weird that a left-footed player took a left-wing corner, an outswinger that was always in danger of potentially going over the byline and back in, whereas you have Douglas Luiz, who's pinpoint accurate with his right foot. That would have been an in-swinging ball. Nice routine for a change, and of course, doesn't count because the ball has to be in the field of play. Big, major, fundamental, foundational issue number 3. What is Villa's identity? I realize we had a major injury, a huge setback, and there have been niggles already to the start of the season, but we have yet to play a settled side from one week to the next. It is impossible to know, even going back to last year, what our best 11 is, who our best players are. There are no discernible systems or style or patterns of play. And I understand the approach on Sunday, and I actually agreed with it. Control the ball, deny West Ham the ball, and hope that a set piece or a moment of magic will break the draw. The problem with that is you go behind, and then what? There isn't a magical lever that you can suddenly pull, and now all of a sudden we understand what we're doing going forward. If that was the case, why not do that from the start? But they haven't, and this has been an issue at Bournemouth and at Crystal Palace in addition to Sunday. I wonder this often about all clubs, not just Aston Villa, but how much time does a team spend in the lead up to a match day on themselves and what they want to do versus how much time they obsess over the opponent and what they do? Now, it's important to know an opponent's strengths and weaknesses and tendencies, that's for sure. But if you're filling your players with new information every single week, how can they possibly play freely? And the problem is, we still don't see anything coherent or effective when Villa is on the ball. I mean, how many times do you see it? A player's in possession, they're looking around for options, and they don't see any, so they go negative. It recycles around the back, and then it's just like, well, give it to Phil and see if he could come up with something. And that's just the lead-up preparations. In-game is an entirely different matter, and look at this one. At halftime, David Moyes made some tweaks, and it impacted the game. All of a sudden, West Ham had more of the ball. They were creating more openings, and ultimately they created the key opening. There was an interesting passage in the All or Nothing Arsenal series where Mikel Arteta draws 2 formations on boards. He asks his players to memorize them, and then he quizzes them on where they need to be and who's next to them. And this is the process called automation, automatic thinking. You don't even have to look. You just know if you're in this position on the park, your right fullback is on your right shoulder. And this is, to me, what is missing with Aston Villa. There's none of that. Everything I see is always improvisation. Players on the ball, gesturing to get other players to move around. They're not playing freely. They're thinking too much. And they need to sort that out. It's hard to do when you play a different system or a different style or with different players every single week. Key issue or moment number 2, obviously, the goal, which turned out to be the defining moment. And please do not tell me that this is good defending by Ezri Konsa or that this is what he's supposed to do. The first thing he needs to do is recognize the danger and then close it down quickly, which he didn't do. It's the one thing he can do. He's got the pace to do it. Recognize the danger, close it down as fast as you possibly can. But if you cannot block that shot outright, then let it go by. The worst thing you can do, and Aston Villa players have done this a lot over the last 2 years, is stick out that lazy leg. I'm just going to stick out the leg and sort of try to block it, because only a deflection like that was going to beat Emi Martinez. You could see it from the angle. That shot was going to be comfortable for our goalkeeper from that distance. No, stick out a lazy leg, and a goalkeeper will tell you that. Let it go. And I think our fan base would have settled for a 0-0 draw with West Ham at home. Clean sheet, unbeaten at home, take a point, keep West Ham behind you. But no. And the number 1 big issue or moment that defined Aston Villa 0 and West Ham United 1. This club right now is fragile and frightened. The team was set up in a way that said to me, tight game, control, don't make any mistakes, don't show West Ham the ball. And that's almost as much about self-preservation for the manager and his technical staff as it is about getting a result. And when the manager is frightened and fragile, guess what happens to the players? They become the exact same. Now, this is a West Ham United team that hadn't won yet, hadn't scored yet. Some of them played on Thursday night in Europe. They've rotated the squad a bit and added some new players. A confident team would have gone after them. They would have taken control and gone at them a little bit, even if that meant risking a back and forth game, which is something that West Ham has actually thrived on a little bit. I don't think the approach was wrong. But I think Steven Gerrard is starting to read the writing on the wall, and he's making decisions to try to prevent what looks to be the inevitable now. I mean, losing his job at this stage would be catastrophic for his managerial career and probably means a long delay for any return to this league and probably him having to take a step back. But I reiterate, a fragile and frightened team is not going to have a go at West Ham. They're going to cower, they're going to play negative passes backwards, and they're going to hope something good happens rather than making something good happen. Everything that went down on Sunday beautifully characterized where Aston Villa Football Club is at right now. Fragile and frightened. Frightened to make a big statement splash in the transfer market, and I'm willing to be proved wrong on that come this Thursday. Frightened to have a go at an opponent that was winless and goalless coming into that game, and so utterly fragile. The minute that ball sailed into the goal, you knew it was done. When Steven Gerrard first arrived at Villa Park, there was an aura about him, a vibrancy, an energy running up and down the sideline. Now, he's a subdued character, looking lost as he confers with his coaches, looking for an answer, or slumped in his seat, looking out in almost a daze. That has a funny habit of impacting the players, by the way. Imagine how they feel when they look over, looking for inspiration from a guy who used to lead his teams on the field, to see him slumped in his chair or busily chatting and looking for answers from his assistants. Everybody associated with this club right now looks stressed, strained, and miserably unhappy. Something is going to have to give here. You've got the lynch mob fan base with the knives out again. You've got angry agents moaning about their clients and their treatment on social media. You've got the regular media calling it a must-win game, and this negative vortex just gathers more and more momentum and steam until you get to that stage where you know that a goal allowed is a death knell in a game. And that's exactly what's happening. And that fragility on the players and on the management transmits to the supporters. I could feel it from where I am. And isn't it weird that I actually feel comforted by the fact that Arsenal is next with City to follow? Because at least, Aston Villa is not expected to do well against those teams. They could put in a good shift, maybe even against the run of form, pull off a result, but it won't be expected. But we're at a stage now, unfortunately, where they needed a must-win game at home to West Ham on Sunday. They didn't get it. What will the morale be like at Bodymore Heath? And now Aston Villa face the in-form side of the Premier League so far this season at the Emirates on Wednesday night when they play Arsenal, who overturned a 1-0 deficit via an Alexandra Mitrovic goal for Fulham and won their fourth game on the spin. They didn't panic. They just kept coming. They have a lovely style. They have lots of weapons, and they seem to have the right players in the right places. And this has come from systemic building of a club and having a cohesive system. And because we saw the insights in the All or Nothing series, we know that there is a lot of purpose to what they've been doing. Now, the game is played on the field and not on paper. We have two sides that couldn't be more polar opposite in their form right now, but you never know. I know Villa will probably change it all up and they probably will have less of the ball. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially when you have an out option like Leon Bailey, who seems to be used, as his agent was moaning about, only when it's too late. He needs to start this game. And he needs somebody who can give him the ball as a counter-attacking option. I'm going to fear the worst for this week, quite frankly. And if they do manage to pick up some results some way, somehow, hey, I'm not going to argue. But I'm going to be watching very carefully for the body language of the players in this game and the one that follows with Man City coming at home, because I think it's going to say an awful lot about where we really are at right now. I feel like I'm kind of going through the motions here, but unlike Aston Villa, I want to be consistent. So here are the issues that we follow throughout the season. Points dropped at Villa Park. Was hoping that would take a lot longer. No goals for Watkins and Ings, or set piece goals came close. I don't think West Ham is a top or bottom six side. And are we ever going to see an Emi Martinez clean sheet in the near future? Now, I've recently become an affiliate member of Kitbag and Fanatics. They are the suppliers of the online Aston Villa store, and I'm not going to bombard you with gear all the time unless there's a new release or a special deal or a sale. But Wednesday, for example, Villa's probably going to wear their new third kit at Arsenal, and some of the training gear associated with it and the stadium jacket, very, very nice. So if you're inclined, you want kit, you love it, Aston Villa's still going to get their cut. Buy it from the link below. You'll be helping a Canadian brother out, and I'd like to go to Villa Park one day before I die with my producer Rob and maybe document it and do a couple of shows from there. This is one way you could help us achieve that. Until Wednesday, enjoy the waning dog days of August, and as always, up the mighty Villa.